All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the February 9th on the Agent Sandbox subproject meeting. And this is our first meeting. So welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And I'm also sharing the meeting notes in the chat so that you can take a look. We have a few announcements. And the first announcement is that this meeting is open topic. So feel free to add your own topic to the agenda, and I'm going to take a look. And you can also present some ideas you have, or you can raise questions, and we can discuss that together. And if you don't have access to edit the meeting notes, you need to join the CGAP's mailing list. And after joining, you should be able to make edits. And the second announcement is that we just announced the second release, version 0.1.1. And you can go ahead and take a look at that new release with a few changes, including the new docs and some observability enhancements and some stability enhancements. So for today, we have one topic. We want to talk about the upcoming roadmap. And this is just the high-level idea. Feel free to propose more changes that you want or make contributions to the repo. So the main theme of our roadmap are three. The first one is about the core reliability and architecture, basically what new features we're adding. This includes the strict sandbox to pod mapping. This is about, we add a few changes that allow you to grab a pod or a sandbox from a worm pool. But that means that we lose the ability to say the sandbox always has a single pod. So we want to fix that. And then there's also some changes regarding the container runtime, supporting more runtime. And then the third one is about the checkpoint integration. So we know that there's a working group for checkpoint and restore. And in the community, they're talking about pod level checkpoint. And we also shared some integration with the GK pod snapshot earlier. And we can also integrate with different clouds checkpoint features so that you can pause and resume the sandbox on different clouds based on their backend, different backend. And then we also want to improve the observability for metrics tracing, logging status. And we want to focus on scalability for how we are able to start many sandbox in a cluster and then make it fast. So we also need to do benchmarking to figure out what latency we have today and how we can improve that. Any questions so far or comments? All right. And the next theme is about the ecosystem in expansion. So we want to potentially integrate with other agent or RL frameworks. We don't want to reinvent the wheel. We want to integrate with existing solutions that are popular. and makes sense to have Sandbox support. And we also want to support other isolation technologies. For now, we have examples for gvisor and Kata container, and there might be more coming in the future. And we also have some examples today in the repository for, it's not a full integration, but it shows you how you can use the agent sandbox with other projects in the ecosystem. And that's part of the example. And the last one is about the developer experience and adoption. So we want to keep improving the documentation and the website that we just launched. We also want to enhance the SDK, the clients. We have a Python client today that allows you to just use Python to interact with Agent Sandbox on the cluster. We can have a similar client using Go so that you can you can interact with Agent Sandbox using Go client. And then we also are working on distributing the Python SDK through PyPy so that you can install the SDK in a more official way. And then I think that's on the high level of the roadmap. So anyone who has more thoughts about the roadmap, feel free to jump in.
Hi, hi everyone. I'm Yashi. I have recently started contributing to Kubernetes in the capacity of contributor communications and kubectl. Um, since I wanted to start contributing to this project, and primarily I seem to be interested in the developer experience and adoption side of it, I just wanted to know like are there like any set of issues which are pointing to these areas? And considering I have like good experience in Python, I've contributed in NumPy as well previously. So yeah, I would be happy to contribute in this area. So if I would be directed in the right direction, it would be very helpful to me.
Yeah, would you share with me your GitHub handle so that I can tag you?
Yeah, I'll just paste it in the chat here.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Mike Brown, Container D. We do a lot of work on sandboxing. I'm going to be very interested in helping you guys out, both with the documentation and cleaning it up, making sure things work. I like the idea of decoupling, but the words sandbox and runtime are very they're overused terms, and we're going to need some edits here and there. Things like lifecycle of a pod. Do you mean a pod sandbox in the container runtime interface, or that sort of thing? It's going to be an interesting work set.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah. Oh, another FYI, we actually already have a sandbox API in Containerd. The new Kata containers, for example, is using this new sandbox API. You probably have heard about the shim API that we share with Cryo, the Containerd Cryo teams. But this new sandbox API, of course, is for pod sandboxes and other sandbox types. Was our intention. Okay. And it's fairly new. It's only a few years old, and it's in Containerd 2.0. as the default now, that we can actually support multiple sandbox controllers within the container runtime. Okay.
So Mike, how do you
Right.
see that can be integrated with Agent Sandbox?
Well, you've documented here that you're going to be doing a strict to pod mapping, and I presume that that means runtime handler is selected in the pod when it's requested to run in SIG right, inside of the kubelet. And then the kubelet talks to the container runtimes, whichever one's configured, through the CRI interface to actually start that pod up. And then in the Kata VM containers or gvisor, they would actually have their own implementation of the lower level runtime engine that we fork out and call. We do have to manage the life cycle of the pod because there's a whole lot of other things that go into the pods, right, than just a container. But yeah, we can certainly support this one container, one pod model that you guys have come up with. And we just might want to think about extending it if and when the cryo team, for example, agrees to begin supporting the Sandbox or API. And the reason for that is because then a team like Kata Containers, right, they can write it once and it works with both container runtimes. Why is that important? Well, we have interfaces that we support in the container runtimes that will allow you to extend the lifecycle and modify the lifecycle execution. It's called NRI. We also support CDI, which I'm sure you've already heard of. But beyond CDI, you can actually do all kinds of interesting plug-in. Daemon plugin runs on the node interfaces, okay, with higher level CRDs, right? So your CRD should be able to do the hibernate. If you've got special, special code you want to execute or events you want to notify, we can add that too, so that it's happening within the life cycle of the pod, right? Containers might get a stop signal. When that stop signal gets processed, you don't even get notified in the CRD right away. However, we would have the ability to give you, you could do something between the stop signal and the kill signal, okay, when you're trying to bring your pods down. So I'm just saying, we'd like to help in doing this life cycle portions of this.
Thanks. And Jeff?
Yeah, I'm just curious. So I have a bit of understanding of gvisor and run SC gets run and how that helps secure. Can you just tell me a little bit about the sandbox in container D and how is that different? How does that enhance that kind of a thing?
The sandboxer that's typically configured for gvisor today is the pod sandbox. We did a CRI cry pod sandbox plugin implementation, and it ships with the container D, so that anytime you call a CRI runtime service request to run a pod, right, we go ahead and we do all the work that's required, including setting up the security context. There's all kinds of other things we have to do. Did that help? Or I can go deep. I can go deep.
I can, yeah, I don't want to monopolize the meeting or anything, but I'm definitely going to go research this to understand it. It's interesting. Cool.
Set up a one-on-one with me and we can go through it. Maybe even invite Harshal or Peter Hunt, Air Commander from the cryo side, so we can all balance that out and explain.
Yeah, and I'd definitely be interested in a very short presentation Q&A session, learning about that stuff. Yeah,
Will do.
David?
Hey everyone, I'm David Keeperos. One of the reasons I'm attending the call is because I was doing some separate work in parallel, and I'll kind of pay some of my work here. But what I was working on was coming up with so the way these agents are, sometimes they go crazy and they will latch on to anything that they have access to even beyond the file system or network. And one of the things I was working on is creating like an SE Linux type approach as a framework. So I built my own binary, which is a low-level binary that has the same API that is in Go from the main API server. And I created a router to pinch off the agent and created a policy engine using OPA to control the agent better. So, and there's a lot of overlap, I think, with this idea of control and agents, but I've just been experimenting with how to use Kubernetes essentially as a platform to create policies of what agents can or can't do, even beyond a pod container level. And this really comes into tool calling. So when they start using all these tools, they just go crazy. And so I was looking for a way to actually control these tools through the entire environment. And so I started with this, and then I started like you guys thinking about the ecosystem, and then thinking about how you could create an ecosystem of a RAG, of embeddings, of memory for these agents, all in this shared, like you're calling it a warm pool, but the policy could control all of them together as a group. So no matter what happens, it would create a bubble so that they can't tool call outside of a policy engine. So no matter what they do, it's constrained to a policy that filters everything at a low level. But I'm here just to kind of learn more about the warm pools and the observability piece. So I'm kind of in learning mode, but I'm also doing these crazy experiments.
Thanks for sharing. So the policy, you are using the policy controller, which is based on Gatekeeper.
No, I'm just using OPA.
Oh, thank you. And
Sorry, go ahead.
oh yeah, I was just asking who else wants to speak.
Yeah, I'm totally open to ask questions about the roadmap. But once everybody else has said what they want to say.
I just wanted to introduce myself. Hey, I'm Adnan, working at Replit. My colleague Connor is also on this call. We're kind of interested in joining this just to mostly learn more about what's happening in Agent Sandbox. We came across it and we're building some similar things, so just wanted to see if there's any overlap. And yeah, if we could learn some more from what you guys are building.
That's good. Do you want a brief introduction of Agent Sandbox, or do you want to talk about your solution?
Yeah, that could be useful. Just get a kind of brief overview of what's available today.
So let me share the Agent Sandbox repo. So we have an overview here that tells you what it does. So basically, there is a core API and there's also some extension APIs. We have a extension mode that you can turn it on and off in the controller using a flag. And then the sandbox itself is a one-to-one mapping to a pod. And you can also create a service out of a sandbox. So basically, we think of it as a isolated environment for you to run either an agent in a sandbox or do a tool call in a sandbox. And then there's also some extensions out of the sandbox concept. There's basically a warm pool, which is to fix the problem of the pod takes a few seconds to start. So the worm pool allows you to basically create pods out of a template. It's like a pod template that you create multiple copies of the pod, and then you can use the clam to clam pods from the worm pool to the sandbox. So all this is for faster or lower latency for creating pods. And the concept is pretty simple, and there's also a Python SDK that you can interact with the agent sandbox using Python call, and it looks something like this. And the SDK itself also has some handling of the networking part. So that's the gist of the project.
Very cool. Yeah, there's definitely some overlap with some of the stuff we're building where we have like a similar like pooling concept that we're building. Yeah, so I think there's definitely some room to chat more.
What kind of constraints do you have on the networking side with like paths, ports, L3 or L4 networking rules? Do you have any control at that level?
We don't have strict control over the networking piece. And the vanilla sandbox creates a headless service. And then in the Python SDK, there's some handling of the either using the gateway or using the tunnel for you to connect to the sandbox. And it's basic for now. And if you want more control, you can add it because the project is still pretty new.
Okay. And is there any audit to see what the heck this agent is doing or has done?
And this is at the Kubernetes level, so there's no audit of that yet.
I just want to ask about essentially about the roadmap for the checkpoint integration. I'm keeping track of, I just want to ask for more information. What do you guys plan? Or essentially, my understanding is that the main use case is essentially how to accelerate the startup time of agents using this snapshot mechanism. But it would be great to have an idea of, for example, the storage that you plan to use and how do you plan to manage the lifecycle of snapshots.
Yeah, this is actually still actively under design. We're designing it. I'm also monitoring the cap that the checkpoint working group is creating. There's a cap for a plot level checkpoint. And for now, our idea is to create a checkpoint and then store the state in a PVC. And then given that it's using PVC, there might be some need for cloud integration. Yeah, but I'm also looking at the caps to see what's the future of what's happening in core and see whatever we propose now will be compatible with that.
Thank you. And one question is about gvisor. My understanding is that the functionality is based on the existing checkpoint restore mechanism in gvisor. But for example, from the Google Cloud documentation, I can see, for example, there is this gvisor checkpoint interface in /proc. But this is not currently in the open source version. So are there plans for open sourcing essentially this type of interfaces, or is that like a different mechanism that's used for checkpointing?
So I don't work on gvisor, so I cannot speak to whether it can be open sourced or not. But in general, from my point of view, we want to make sure that the interface we use for checkpointing in Engine Sandbox stay generic, so it will not be proprietary. We want to make sure it's extensible, so for different vendors or different solutions, and it also needs to work with core.
And last question about GPU workloads. So my understanding is that gvisor currently supports checkpointing of NVIDIA, essentially workloads running on NVIDIA GPUs using the CUDA checkpoint tool. We also have the ability to checkpoint restore workloads on AMD GPUs with Creo. There is an AMD GPU plugin. And my understanding is that the same is also possible with gvisor, but someone has to implement the functionality there. And I was wondering if you have considered different types of GPUs or?
So for the agent sandbox level, we didn't need to integrate that deep into that. We delegate that to the underlying either gvisor or maybe Kata container layer, and then let them handle that. And I think we're going to provide some interface to do the handoff so that we hand it over to the lower level to do the real checkpointing.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for asking those questions. I was going to ask some similar ones. So yeah, I work at NVIDIA, and I'm not really here on an official capacity necessarily, but that being said, I work on the Growth project in particular, which is like superpods basically, and disaggregated inferencing serving. And what we're looking at maybe for the Sandbox is agents running and hitting disaggregated inferencing deployments, yeah, so we don't see it necessarily as like the GPU being attached to the Sandbox necessarily, more of like getting used by the APIs that are being served by say Grove, and then like what we're seeing right now, personally speaking, with like Claude Code and like agents like that is like it's basically a sea change that's coming. And yeah, I'm thinking about how we can integrate the Sandbox stuff to take advantage of that. And yeah, just give you a bit of a heads up what I'm kind of thinking about.
Thanks for sharing. So I think we're at time. Thanks everyone for joining. And just a reminder, we have this meeting bi-weekly, and if you have anything you want to discuss, or maybe you just want to present your idea, or you want to raise questions, feel free to this talk. And if you don't have access, just join the CGAP's mailing list, or you can ping me if you still couldn't edit it. All right. Thanks everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
See you.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.